Ever think about how the technology we use every day could actually help solve crimes? Like, it's kind of wild, right?
Yeah.
Today, we're diving into a case that really blurs those lines
Okay.
between, our digital lives and real-world investigations.
Right.
So this case starts with the death of Silvia Galva in Hallandale Beach, Florida, back in 2018. Initially, everyone thought it was just a tragic accident,
Oh,
like a drowning in her bathtub.
right.
But then, get this, investigators found out she had an Amazon Echo in her home.
And so that's where it gets interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because those devices, with their always-on microphones, they capture way more than you think.
Really?
They're always listening for that wake word, but they pick up all sorts of background audio, too.
Oh, wow. So it's like having a silent witness in the room.
Exactly.
Potentially recording conversations or even like sounds of a struggle.
Yeah, exactly.
So did the investigators think that the Echo might have picked up something important in Sylvia's case?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They thought it might have recorded, like, clues about what really happened to her,
Wow.
maybe an argument, or sounds of a fight, or even the voice of her boyfriend, Adam Crespo. He was the only other person home.
Oh, wow. It's mind-blowing how technology like that we use every day, can become such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
So what happened? Did Amazon give those recordings to the investigators?
Yeah, they did. They had to comply with a subpoena, a legal order, and provide data from Sylvia's Echo.
Huh. It's kind of unsettling to think that a simple smart speaker could be like a key piece of evidence in a criminal investigation.
I know, right?
So what did those recordings reveal?
Well, according to reports, the recordings actually captured Crespo talking to the device, like giving it commands, around the time Sylvia died.
Really?
And that's huge because he initially said he wasn't even in the room.
Oh, so the recordings put him right there at the scene.
Yeah.
That's pretty damning. Did he have an explanation?
He did. He claimed Sylvia slipped and fell in the tub, and he, tried to save her. But the autopsy showed injuries that weren't consistent with an accidental fall.
So the physical evidence didn't match his story.
Right.
And those Alexa recordings placed him in the room at the time of her death.
Exactly.
So where did the investigation go from there?
Well, they started piecing everything together, the timeline, the evidence, witness statements. And those Alexa recordings, while not the only evidence, ended up being a major factor in building a case against Crespo.
Wow. This is where it gets really interesting. I'm curious about how they actually used those recordings. Like, did they analyze the audio for specific sounds or phrases? What kind of technology are we talking about?
Yeah, analyzing audio like that is complex.
Yeah.
They use special software to filter out noise, enhance the voices, and even try to identify specific voices.
Oh, wow.
So in this case, they probably looked for sounds of a struggle, raised voices, anything that could either support or contradict Crespo's story.
It's like a real-life CSI episode.
It is.
This case just goes to show how big a role technology's playing in criminal justice now, right?
But, it also raises those questions about our privacy, when even our household devices could be recording us.
Exactly.
It's a bit unnerving.
It is. It really blurs the lines. This case is just one example, but it shows how those lines are getting blurry between our digital lives and these investigations.
Yeah.
And it makes us think about some really tough questions about data privacy, surveillance, and, just the power of technology.
It's a lot to think about. I'm definitely eager to dig into those issues a bit more. But before we go there, can we take a closer look at, the technical side of all this?
Yeah.
Like, how do these smart speakers actually work? How do they capture and store audio? What happens to all that data?
Definitely. Understanding how they work is key to understanding how they can impact situations like this one with Sylvia. Okay, so before we were talking about how those recordings from Sylvia's Echo, ended up being part of the investigation. But honestly, I'm still a little fuzzy on how these smart speakers work. It's like magic. You just say a word and bam, music starts playing, or it answers your questions.
Yeah, right.
Can you break it down for us? Like, how does the technology actually work?
Yeah. It seems like magic, but it's really just some pretty cool engineering.
Yeah.
So it all starts with the microphone. It's always listening, waiting for that wake word.
Okay.
In this case, Alexa.
Right.
And when it hears that word, it triggers the device to start recording, and it sends that audio to Amazon servers.
So it's always listening, but only actually records when it hears Alexa.
Exactly.
What about all the little snippets it hears before the wake word? Does it record those too?
That's a really good question. And it's why people are concerned about privacy.
Yeah.
those snippets, they are processed, to see if the wake word was spoken, but usually they're not saved for very long. But there are times when those pieces of audio can be kept.
Oh.
Sometimes it's because of like a technical glitch.
Huh.
Or, if someone specifically asks for them, like in an investigation.
Wow. So even those little moments before we even say Alexa, they can kind of leave a digital trail. That's kind of creepy.
Yeah, it is a bit, isn't it?
But okay, let's say it does hear Alexa and it starts recording. What happens to those recordings? Like, where do they go and who can listen to them?
Okay, so once that recording is sent to Amazon's servers, they analyze it.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to figure out what you want, right? So they turn your speech into text, they pick out keywords, and then bam, Alexa does what you asked.
Right.
Those recordings are saved on their servers, and they're really strict about who can get to them.
Okay, so it's not like anyone at Amazon can just pull up my recordings and listen to them whenever they want.
No, not at all. It's usually only a small group of people who can access them.
Like who?
Engineers, technicians, people who need them to, like, improve Alexa or if something's not working right.
Okay.
But as we saw with Silvia's case, law enforcement can get those recordings if they have a legal reason, like that subpoena we talked about.
Right. It's a tricky situation. I mean, it's amazing that this technology can help solve crimes.
Definitely.
But there's got to be a balance, right?
Absolutely.
We need to protect people's privacy, too.
Yeah. And cases like this, they really force us to look at those questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the tech itself. It's about the laws and the ethics around how it's used.
Right. Do you think the current laws, are they doing a good enough job of dealing with this?
That's the big debate right now in courts and, in government.
Yeah.
Technology changes so fast, and the laws are always trying to catch up. We need to figure out how to update them so they protect people, but also let law enforcement use this technology effectively.
It seems like it's just going to get more complicated as these devices become even more a part of our everyday lives.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's not just smart speakers either.
Right.
Think about it. Your smartphone tracks you. Your fitness tracker knows how much you're moving.
Yeah.
Smart home systems. It's a lot of data.
Yeah.
And we need to think about who owns all that data, who gets to see it, what they can do with it. It's a big deal.
It's kind of scary, It feels like that sci-fi thing where everything we do is being recorded.
I know.
But it's not sci-fi. It's really happening.
It is.
We got to figure this stuff out now so we can make sure technology is used for good.
Exactly. Well said.
So going back to Silvia Galva's case, what happened to Adam Crespo in the end? Did those Alexa recordings lead to a conviction?
They did, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The recordings, along with the other evidence, they were enough to get a conviction.
Mm-hmm.
Crespo was found guilty of second-degree murder.
Wow.
And he was sent to prison.
It's hard to believe that something like a smart speaker, something most people have in their homes, could have such a huge impact on someone's life.
I know. It's a powerful reminder that this technology, it's not just a gadget, it's something that can have real consequences.
Yeah, it's a landmark case for sure.
It is. It shows how technology can help uncover the truth. But also, we need to be really careful about how we use it, what's ethical, what's legal, all of that.
This is a fascinating case, and I'm starting to see how big it really is. But what about the public? Like, how did people react to using Alexa recordings as evidence?
Oh, it was huge. The case was all over the news, and people were talking about it everywhere. It really got people thinking about privacy and how technology is changing our lives.
So what were some of the main concerns?
Well, one of the biggest things people were worried about was surveillance. Like, are smart speakers just listening devices for the government?
Oh, that's unsettling.
Right. And it makes you ask, where do we draw the line? Like, when is it okay for law enforcement to use this kind of technology? What about our right to privacy in our own homes?
Those are some tough questions.
Yeah, they are. And another big concern was bias.
Bias.
Yeah, like, could those algorithms, the AI they use to analyze the recordings, could they be biased against certain people?
Like if someone has a certain accent or something.
Exactly. Could it be more likely to flag certain voices or speech patterns because of someone's race or gender? That's a problem, especially when you're talking about using this tech in criminal justice.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You need to be able to trust that the technology is fair.
Exactly. Can we trust these systems to be neutral? And what can we do to make sure they're used responsibly? It's a lot to think about.
It seems like we're just getting started on a much bigger conversation here about the ethics of all this.
We are, and it's a conversation that needs to involve everyone, not just tech people and politicians, but regular people, ethicists, everyone. We need to work together to make sure we're using this technology in a way that benefits everyone and protects our rights.
It's a lot to think about. I think I need a minute to process all this. We'll be back in a bit to talk about what this case means for the future. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about Silvia Galva's case, how those Alexa recordings were crucial, and we got into the nitty-gritty of how these smart speakers work and the whole privacy debate. But I want to zoom out a bit. What kind of impact do you think this case is going to have on the future, for tech and for law enforcement?
Sylvia's case. I think it's like a turning point. It's a sign of what's coming. Technology just keeps advancing. These devices are everywhere. So, yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more digital evidence used in investigations.
So our smart homes, our cars, even what we wear, it could all help solve crimes. That's kind of incredible, but also a little scary.
Definitely. We're leaving digital traces everywhere, right? And those traces can reveal a lot. It gives law enforcement a powerful new tool, but it also brings up those big questions about privacy and our freedoms.
Right. It's like it could make our community safer, but also lead to a society where we're always being watched. How do we find that balance?
That's the challenge, isn't it? How do we have security without giving up our privacy? It's one of the biggest issues we're facing, and we need to be talking about it. What are the risks? What are we willing to give up? And how do we make sure we're protecting people's rights?
Sounds like we need everyone at the table for this one.
Yeah, we do. Lawmakers, tech companies, privacy advocates, regular people. We got to work together to find solutions that work for everyone.
So what can people listening do? It can feel overwhelming. Like, where do you even start?
You're right, it can be a lot. But listen, your voice matters. Stay informed. Read about cases like this one. Understand how technology is being used where you live. Talk to your elected officials. Ask questions. Speak up. Support groups that are fighting for privacy.
Knowledge is power. The more we know, the better we can navigate all this.
Exactly. And remember, we're still shaping the future of technology.
Yeah.
Our choices matter. Our actions matter. We need to make sure technology serves us, not the other way around.
I like that. Well, this has been an incredible conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Happy to be here.
And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought. Keep exploring these issues, keep asking questions, keep those conversations going. Until next time, stay curious.